Hi, Alejandro. How are you?
Hello, Russell. How are you? I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Good. You're welcome. Thank you for coming on today. Um, this interview is going to be about identity and responsibility. It's probably one of the deepest topics I've addressed on the channel so far. So good luck. But it's particularly related to you because you work with identity in your work. But let's rewind and talk about you. How do you define yourself as an artist? Um, Tell us about the type of work that you make.
Okay, so first of all, I'm half Spanish, half Latin American, actor, dancer, singer, architect. But I like to say I am a theater maker because since basically when I moved to the UK, I moved here a couple of years ago, 8 years ago, to do an MA in collaborative theater. Um, it was sort of like the first time that I encountered theater that was not necessarily based on something that had been written previously or that had like a structure, a preconceived structure. So um, basically, it was the first time that I was confronted to theater making. And that was great. And that was very interesting because that freed me from many things. And at the same time, it empowered me to wear like all of these different hats at different moments as I made my work. So so as this happened, also it was very interesting to discover that to discover the path to work on my own voice, let's say. So a voice of a Latin American, Spanish actor, dancer, tap dancer, uh, and so on, who was doing theater. Because precisely that was what made me that was the only thing I could speak about and that I could talk about, really. so so I call myself a theater maker now. I also call myself an actor sometimes because I also have, on the other hand, like this more standard path, an agent. I go to castings and I do all of that. But at the same time, I keep myself and all of my spirit alive and warm by creating work, and that is writing, recording, um, performing my own things, singing, doing little concerts, doing little, like, all of this specter of work that I do.
Wow, it's a lot. So tell us about identity because you talk about this on your website. How does that manifest within your work?
So, as I said before, I think that in a way, like, of course, we all know many things about who we are. Uh, but then when context changes, our identity as well changes because um, the way in which people look at us, or the way in which we fit or not fit into that place where we are, changes the rules of the game, right? So, for example, you can say, I come from Colombia, and in Colombia, I am a white, middle, upper class person, educated. The way in which I speak is sort of like posh or elevated. And then suddenly I live here. I move on to the UK, and I'm nothing of all of that. So what am I now? Am I a person of color? It's like, am I a person of color or am I not a person of color? What does my way of speaking tell other people about myself, or what do they think about me? Then, like, what is my social status now? In the hierarchy of society, where am I? Am I an immigrant at the bottom of the thing, of the structure? Or so I thought that is very interesting. And also, um, when I talking about identity in my work, I think that trying to express these things and manifest all of this throughout the work that I make is what defines my work, And not only in a very realistic way, but we could also I could also talk here about autofiction, autofiction, yeah. Which is sort of taking taking all of these elements and creating stories with them. Of course, the origin, and there's truth and there's honesty and there's reality and respect to all of that. But suddenly you start handling all of this information or facts or whatever, or thoughts, and then you start creating stories with them, or you weave them to create a story, or you tell the stories from now and you weave all of that into that. And so for me, when I say that identity is very important in my work, is because that is the journey that I've taken, you know, like that has definitely defined my work. Even though at the beginning, when I came here, you know, as an actor, all I thought was Shakespeare, and I'm gonna be, you know, I'm gonna do Shakespearean acting, you know. That's the thing, because, you know, like that's what probably I would have done if I would have stayed in Colombia, do like this upper class accent thing. But suddenly when I came here, it's like, there's no way someone will pick me up to do Shakespeare, except if it were like a Mexican director who wanted to do this thing about, like, very specific, but not for a truly Shakespeare RP, you know, thing at the Royal Shakespeare done by the Royal Shakespeare Company. And the same applies to other jobs, like to acting jobs. I would always want to do, you know, to do the hero, to opt for the posh guy in the gallery selling the things, or whatever, you know. But I normally do the Latino roles, which is like the barman, the smuggler, the salsa dancer. But then I don't feel that I fit the parts, because I don't, you know, like I don't feel I look like a smuggler. So I don't get many smuggler parts. So once again, it's the thing about identity, you know. It's like who I am, who am I here, how do people see me? People put me up for work, and then I feel in a different way. And all of this is my existential dilemma that I dilemma or game at the same time.
Yeah.
Which I live and cohabit, and now I've learned to sort of like squeeze and make work out of that.
Yeah.
The middle of the process, let's say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'll put some links up to your website on this interview anyway. It's interesting because I had a chat with somebody recently, a friend of mine who moved to New York, and I interviewed him about what it was like working in New York. And he was saying that he realized what happened was he'd almost lost his class, because the class system in America is very different. And suddenly he was like this quite well-to-do British actor who everybody thought in a different way to when he was here. And it's kind of touching maybe on what you're saying, is that when you came here, you didn't quite knew where you fit and where you wanted to go, etc. Which is great, because that leads to my second question. What's it like working in British theatre? Because I'd say you're an original theatre maker, so you have an element of agency. But what's it like being in the UK and then also making your own work?
So first of all, I think it's great. I think it's amazing the amount of theater that the UK produces, and the amount of theater that happens in this country. As I said, all of this theater making world, this underground, the fringe, you know, all of this subversive, let's say, scene happening. It is very exciting. It is very fertile. It is very generous, and it's very abundant as well. So it's very exciting and very stimulating on one hand. And then we have like more commercial theater, you know, like the West End and the National Theater, and we have their productions, and then we have like the festivals, and we have the official applications for the festivals. And for me, that's where it's been more difficult, like sort of like to get into. Once again, because even though the Latino community is like the 8th, I think, largest community in the UK, there's no cultural community like being woven. So like we are not considered, like we're not considered very much, or not non-existent. So places for Latinos, parts written for Latinos, we have no visibility at all. So that limits our possibilities to work a lot. We are basically like we are not we're not part of the system, let's say. I do believe that there has been in the last year lots of efforts to be more inclusive, for theaters to, you know, to represent, to be more representative and varied in all of their what they do and what they produce. But in a way, I feel that the work is not really happening, or it's starting to happen, or needs to happen more like in the core of the thing. So it's not about having a Black actor or a Latino actor, or, you know, doing this part here or that part there. But I think it's more about working on programs to include all of these minorities or communities in places where they can be part of making the decisions, no? Like, not just hiring an actor to do a role, but why not, like, let's include a writer that can bring all that culture and all that language, because many times I think it's also about language, you know. If we don't have the language to speak about things, then we don't speak about them. So I think that all of these languages need to be brought in, you know, of all of this also intersectional identities, because it's not anymore about being white or Black or Latino or thing. It's about also being what if you're Latino and gay and Muslim, and what if you are a woman, a trans woman, and you come from Japan. You know, I think it's like identity, something that is, it's more complex and unique. So I do believe that we need to include people. The theater industry needs to include like people like them, you know, like people who are different and who come from different backgrounds into the places where the decisions are making, producers, so that they can sort of like have a say in all of those, and that the change can really happen, and not only for it just to be ticking boxes, you know, like, okay, we have variety of actors, minorities, and but I do think that there's lots of stuff happening out there. Also, there's lots of stuff not happening out there. But I do think that there's a growing awareness about this, and of course I can say all of this because all of what I've just said, because there's a huge industry and there's many things happening. You know, like if I look back into other countries, like probably in my own country, in Colombia, what's happening is very small. So I wouldn't be able to say all of these things. I would have to say like, oh yeah, and acknowledge all the good things that are happening. Yeah. But because so many good things happening here, I am able to say that is that little place where I'd like things to change, you know, or I'd like to be part of that change.
Okay, so you said that you want to be part of the change. Where is the artist's responsibility right now? Because obviously we're in a little bit of a flux, but I, for one, have been thinking, what can I do in reaction to politics, politicians, environment, government, etc. What can I do? So where are you at in your thoughts, maybe your personal thoughts, but also for other artists? Where do you think the next route is for us?
Well, I really like the word that you just used, and flux. So I really think that we're in a moment of we're a pivoting point or transition point where things are. I think it's pivoting rather than transitioning, you know, because we're not quite sure that where we're moving. But as theater makers, I think that we have the opportunity, more than the responsibility. I would first say about the opportunity of using this moment to create whatever that is. So when we're working in times when everything was working before, right, and and as theater maker, the National Theater, the National Theater is just, I'm using that example as an institution. And something was going on. The National Theater was working, and the young Vic, the old Vic, here, there. And we wanted to go there and have our work as theater makers be shown there, because it will give us visibility and because those were like the objectives or the final points where we would want to be seen. I think that now, because those points are sort of like paused and we don't know what's going to happen with them, I think that now is the moment to explore and to use all of these resources that we have in our hands, which are free, basically, Zoom, streaming, the lives, social media. So with all of these ways of communicating, how can we send up our message out there? And I don't care what the message is, because each person, each theater maker has their own message and their own story and their own thing that they want to tell. But I think that now is a great moment. It's like a revolt, to create a revolt, or because revolution is very enlightened and revolution is very, academic. But I would say a revolt and start producing stuff that will definitely be super important when we go back to normal and everything goes back to normal, which normal will be different, of course. It will not be the same normal as it used to be a year ago. Will be the influence, we'll have had the power to create all of this material that will be out there, that will have changed people's perception on what theater is. So I do believe that it's super important to be doing stuff right now, not just sit down and think, okay, I'll just wait when I can go back into the room and back into, emailing the young Vic so that I can show my work there, and do it and stream it. And it's great because like most of us are doing like very bad things, and the quality of things is very bad, and it doesn't matter because we're all learning at the moment. So it's a good moment to do bad things and to learn how to do them, because in a year's time, when everyone is doing amazing stuff like that, that'll be too late for you to start trying out bad things. But now we're all experimenting. So I think it's a great moment and a great opportunity to do, just to explore.
Yeah, it's funny. A friend of mine said to me a couple of years ago, she says, once you can't get in an impossible system, you are free. And I've written about this before, that I actually think that the theatre maker, whatever that is, in the past 5 to 10 years, has probably walked off down another road anyway and started to realize that this imagined center, we're not really heading towards there anymore, because it doesn't make the type of work that we want to make. Like you said, we want to experiment, want to make more mistakes, etc. And so I'm glad you said that now's the time to work, because it could be paralyzing, couldn't it, right now? But I found in some ways I've actually probably been more creative in this past 8 to 10 months. It may be in micro, little micro changes, but yeah, I feel like I've definitely burrowed down and gone, okay, this is a tremor in the world, and how do I respond to that? I think. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And because it's this moment of confusion, and we're all learning how to, as I said before, we're all learning where we are and what we're doing. So everyone is a bit relaxed about stuff. So you just turn on, and if it's good, you like it, and if you don't like it, you just leave it and you let it go. And then, but we're seeing lots of stuff, and we're open to all of that. So I think that the approach of the maker is just go on and do it, because people like it. Don't worry about it, like you hadn't had to stir a lot, you haven't had to spend a lot, you just did it with the resources you had, and there's always out there someone who'll reach out. Well, it's your case, you and I sent you my work and I said, hey, and you said, I cannot see it. I sent the link, and then we established a conversation, and that's how things are happening nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think that it's by doing, and by getting out there, provoking, and doing and saying what you have to say.
Yep, it's going to be interesting to see where we are in a year. I'll get you back on. And you can say, what do you think now? Okay, thank you so much for talking to us today, Alejandro. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Cheers.